preventing serious illness and death, even if they don't prevent you from getting infected with the circulating strains. Also, the same drugs that we've had are still highly effective. So while the virus is trying to find ways to infect us and transmit from one person to the next, it's not necessarily trying to find ways to kill us or to make us really sick. And so even though we're playing catch up in terms of infection, we're not necessarily playing catch up in terms of serious disease and illness.
And along the lines of infection, the subvariants BA4 and 5 are very good at
it's going to be conceivable that you BA5 and a few months ago, and then be reinfected with BA5. It's just that each of these subvariants is a little bit different than the last one, so it has a small advantage over those other subvariants in innovating the immunity that we've already built up. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's becoming more and more and more transmissible. The virus is always just trying to stay a little step ahead and keep itself a little bit harder to recognize from the immunity that we've applied.
As you said, virologists expect mutations and variants to crop up, but the speed at which this seems to mutate and create its variants to people who are not doctors seems pretty quick. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid point. I would say that if you were to compare the speed at which we've seen the uptake of the current subvariants, so BA5, 4, and even 4.6, relative to the initial Delta variant or the initial Omicron wave, it's actually been much slower. So for example, a BA4.6 has been with us for 2 months now, and even now it's only estimated to account for about 6% or so of all infections across the country. So this is not the same sort of thing as in December, where Omicron went from 0 to almost 100% in a period of 4 to 6 weeks.
Hear about the variants that become variants of concern, the variants or subvariants. Can you put to context how many variants we're dealing with? So basically what I'm going at is are there so many that are just not concerning?
Well, yeah, and the number, nobody even knows that number because there are so many that are developed people all the time. So this number is going to be in the thousands probably of different variants that have been developed, and only so far 7 or 8 have gotten to the of really becoming the dominant variant or subvariant in the population. So even for the virus, most of the variants are losers, not winners.
You are listening to Ask an Expert on KCBS. Today we are speaking with Dr. David Dowdy, an epidemiologist with the Johns of Public Health. If you've got a question for the doctor, just email us at askus@kcbsradio.com. Stand by, Doctor. We're going to take a quick break right now for another look at your drive. Kim is in your local Honda dealer's traffic center with the updates. Yes, better news here, Melissa, if you're coming into San Francisco Bay Bridge, that was just a disabled motorcycle before the tunnel. They cleared it according to CHP. Just got off the phone with them. And westbound Bay Bridge, as you come off the upper deck, right around Fremont Street, that's a slow roll out to the 101 merge as you southbound. There had been a disabled vehicle there. Out to the Santa Monica Expressway. Just some brake lights here at the scene. We'll look into that for you. Your next update, 9:38 on the traffic leader, KCBS.
For temperatures inland anyway, into the mid to upper 90s. It'll be in the 60s at the coast, 70s and 80s around the bay. Clear skies for tonight with lows in the 50s and 60s. Traffic and weather together on the 8s and all news 106.9 and AM 740.
WSRadio.com. Doctor, we're going to take some of these listeners' questions now. Some might be about BA 4.6 variant, some might be more general. This is actually a more general question. It's about home test kits. This listener says they've received tests that have a surprisingly short shelf life according to the use-by date on the package. They're wondering if storing them in a refrigerator might extend that use-by date.
That's a good question. It may, but formally we should go by the use-by dates that are on the packages. I think in general, that probably are going to be usable, a week or two after that use-by date. Probably not many months. Certainly, if you get a positive test, even on an expired test, probably likely to be true, but you might have a higher likelihood of a false negative.
Another listener question here. They wonder why it's taking so long to get a nasal vaccine.
Yeah, I think that's a big question also. I know that there are people who are working on nasal routes of vaccination. The challenge is that the immune system in our noses is somewhat distinct from the immune system in our bodies as a whole. The needles give that vaccine and direct access to our total body immune system. The nasal vaccines have to specifically adapt to the immune system there.
Another question about home tests. Somebody's wondering if you know the most responsible way to dispose of the testing components.
No, I think the key is any potentially infectious materials you want to keep away from other people for at least a few hours. But the remainder of the components are generally disposable in the trash.
Wondering about these variants and subvariants. With the next generation of vaccines coming out, is it forward-looking? So if there's another mutation that it targets a spot that would be common to that one as well?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And unfortunately, the answer is no. This is sort of like our annual flu vaccines. And so where the virus is going to mutate to next. So we can update vaccines to reflect the most recent formulation or strain of the virus that's circulating at the time that the vaccine is made, but we can't forward. Again, the good news is that the bivalent vaccines are being formulated with BA4 and BA5 in mind, and right now in the U.S., those account for over 90% of all infections still. So we're hopeful that the bivalent vaccines, if they become available in the next month or so, which we hope, will be well targeted to the circulating strain.
This listener has a question about variants take over. Is it because they're more infectious, or is it because our immunity has built up to the ones previous?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and the answer is probably both, but it probably depends on the variant. So for example, when Delta and Omicron first came on the scene, those were likely because they were truly more infectious. But as we get further and further along, probably more and more likely that these are not variants that are intrinsically more infectious, but rather that they are just a little bit different from what our immune systems have grown used to.
We all know that Dr. Walensky here at the CDC has called for a reorganization because she feels the agency did not react well, even before her tenure, to the pandemic outbreak.
Always trust agencies that are willing to admit that they could have done things better, more than I will agencies that never admit that they're ever wrong. So, I do think that there were some missteps. I'm glad to see that they are acknowledging those missteps. I don't think that we as the society should be holding our public agencies to a standard of perfection. And hopefully this reorganization will result in an agency that's a little bit more nimble, a little bit more able to communicate guidance in a way that's not too confusing to the rest of us.
You know, we've been talking for the last few months that in terms of mitigation strategies, to take their own risk assessment and do what makes them comfortable. With these new variants that keep developing and the BA.4/6 subvariant, do you recommend that anybody maybe become a little bit more vigilant, say if they're not wearing masks, to do so again?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big picture here is that total number of cases, of ED visits that have a COVID diagnosis, test positivity, wastewater surveillance, hospitalizations, all of these numbers are currently flat to trending down. We will variants, but I think it's important to interpret those newer subvariants in the context of the overall picture. And right now, I don't think that the overall picture of COVID-19 is one that's screaming that we need to be taking new precautions.
Dr. Dowdy, thank you so much for talking to us. You've been listening to Dr. David Dowdy, an epidemiologist with the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. And you can listen to the entire interview at kcbsradio.com. All of our kcbsradio.com/ask-an-expert, or look under the More button at kcbsradio.com.
KCBS News Time, 9:36. Your next traffic update's coming up in just 2 minutes.
Here we go again. Another special interest ballot. This time, it's Prop 27.
Prop 27 was written and funded by big out-of-state gamblers. Now a massive expansion of online sports gambling.
Prop 27's promoters want to turn every cell phone, every tablet, and every laptop in California into a gambling device.
While 90% of the profits would go to the out-of-state gambling corporations.
Prop 27's promoters claim their proposal is a solution to addiction and homelessness.
Are you kidding me?
Right? Just like we were told the lottery would take care of school funding in California.
The fact is, Prop 27 is designed to benefit its corporate promoters at the expense of Californians.
Please join our broad statewide coalition, which includes more than 50 Indian across California. Vote no on Proposition 27.
Stop the corporate online gambling prop.
Paid for by Yes on 26, No on 27, Coalition for Safe Responsible Gaming, sponsored by California Indian Tribes. Committee major funding from Federated Indians of Great and Rancheria, Pechanga Band of Indians.
Hi, this is George with Left Coast Buyers. We buy properties all over California. If you own a house or an apartment building and want to sell it fast at a great price, call us at 925-490-2000. We can pay cash and close as little as 7 days. We buy properties in any condition, any price range, and can help you in any situation. Do you own a property that is run down and needs thousands of dollars in repairs? Are you out of time, money, and energy? Let us help. Are you looking for an easy way to get top dollar for your property and sell on your terms and timeline? Well, call Left Coast Buyers now at 925-490-2000. We can solve any problem. We buy divorce houses, inherited houses. We even buy vacant houses and abandoned houses. Do you have a tenant who hasn't paid rent? Are you behind on property taxes, mortgage payments, or even facing a foreclosure? Even if you're just nervous about capital gains or an upcoming recession, we've seen it all. So if you or someone you know owns a property and needs to sell, call Left Coast Buyers at 925-490-2000. That's 920-2000.
KCBS News Time, 9:38. We are back on the traffic watch now with Kim, who's in your local Honda dealer's traffic center. All right, we're taking a look at the Bay. A lot better than it had. Hardly any wait at the toll plaza, but the metering lights are still chugging away. We did have a disabled motorcycle before the tunnel. It looks like that's been removed. And then as you come off the west end, some brake lights still coming aboard the Skyway from Fremont Street, most of the way out to 101. It's crowded more than it's slow. There was an earlier disabled vehicle there on the ramp that takes you on to southbound 101. So we're still recovering a bit from that. Interstate 80, after a terrible morning, there was an earlier fatal crash. This has recovered, but not completely. We still see slow traffic in pockets with the Chilton Auto Body collision cam from Cutting Boulevard. West 80 still pretty slow into Berkeley, but it's not the stop and go that we were dealing with earlier. Looking at the south, about a delay I was starting to see on northbound 101 coming up to San Tomas Expressway, just from